One of the exciting things you have coming down the pipeline, and you're known for this, is Scentlok suits, and you have a signature Scentlok suit coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, yes. Actually, they were over here about 2 weeks ago filming a promo video for it. It's going to be sold online only, and it's going to be a limited amount of suits. There's only going to be 1,500 suits, but it's going to be a John Eberhart signature suit. It's going to be called the Saddle Hunter suit. I've been saddle hunting since 1981 and been very successful at it, and I basically designed a Scentlok suit because I'm a big activated carbon fan. I don't pay attention to wind, and I designed a Scentlok suit for saddles.
Lights,
camera,
follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
Camera.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
The Exodus Podcast,
Your source for all things whitetail.
All right, welcome, John. How's it going this morning?
It's going very well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we got a chance to catch up a little bit last week, I think it was, on what you have going on. And there's a variety of exciting things coming down the pipeline for you. So you're getting ready to retire at the end of this year from your sales position of how many years?
32 years. I started out, after high school, washed dishes in restaurants. I caddied, a paper boy. I did lots of strange jobs in metal factories. I made mortars for the Vietnam War. And then I was buyer in Michigan's largest archery buyer, Michigan's largest sporting goods store for 4 years. And then I finished drywall board for 14. And for the last 32 years, I've been a sales rep in the hunting industry. And
Wow.
I love it. It's great. It was a great job.
So it's always kind of a touch. How old are you? I'm just going to ask you straightforward.
71.
71. Okay. So then as you're retiring from your sales position for over 32 years, what does that look like? Because it sounds, I know that you have a lot of really exciting things coming down the pipeline. Is it allowing more time to follow some of these projects?
Yeah, actually, I went fishing yesterday, caught a big ass pike, and caught some walleyes, and but yeah, I'll have a lot more time to fish and hunt and do podcasts, do more YouTube stuff. My son Joe made me kind of dangerous because he showed me how to edit videos. So
I was watching some of your videos this morning. I saw on the computer that you had the editing software up. I was like, oh wow, you're editing your own videos now. It looks like.
yes.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
really
it was
cool.
kind of interesting because I was going to have somebody else do it because my son Joe can't do it anymore because of his job. God, it was really expensive to have somebody else edit videos.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you took the bull by the horns and doing it yourself. One of the exciting things you have coming down the pipeline, and you're known for this, is Scentlok suits, and you have a signature Scentlok suit coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, yes. Actually, they were over here about 2 weeks ago filming a promo video for it. It's going to be sold online only, and it's going to be a limited amount of suits. There's only going to be 1,500 suits, but it's going to be a John Eberhart signature suit. It's going to be called Saddle Hunter suit. Very simple, Saddle Hunter suit.
Uh-huh.
I've been saddle hunting since 1981 and been very successful at it. And I basically designed a Scentlok suit because I'm a big activated carbon fan. I don't pay attention to wind, and I designed a Scentlok suit for saddle hunting.
That's really cool.
Want to hear some features, or
I totally want to hear. Yeah, I'm very curious on what that looks like, what the design process looked like. So what are some key things that make it special?
It's going to have a deep napped exterior fleece. It's going to have a polyurethane waterproof membrane, but the seams will not be taped. So it's going to be labeled windproof, even though it's going to be pretty much waterproof. You'd have to sit in a downpour to get wet. And the actual deep nap fleece is there to mask the noise of the polyurethane membrane. It's going to have 100 grams of thin slip in the body of the suit, 80 in the arms, 100 grams in the hip area of the pants, 80 in the legs. The jacket's going to have a really short collar in the front, so you don't chafe your neck because you're always turning your head. I hate collars. And it's going to be relatively long in the back. It's going to be 3 inches high in the back to block the wind. So it's going to taper back up high under your ears and then higher in the back. The slash pockets on the jacket are going to be up higher because when you're in a saddle, you're kind of confined. You don't have access to normal slash pockets. They're too low. The saddle kind of covers them up. So the slash pockets are going to be higher. They're going to be fleece lined. So they're going to be like hand warmer pockets. We'll have a cell phone pocket up here at the top. It's going to have a shirt tail hem at the bottom and the back of the jacket to override your pants. The pants are going to have they're going to have a rise in the back. So you're going to have a drop hem in the jacket and a rise in the back of the pants. So you don't have to worry about anything. The overlapping will help with scent. The zipper on the front is going to be a two-way zipper, so it'll zip up from the bottom or down from the top. It's going to have a quick adjust buckle on the front, so it's going to have belt loops, but you don't need a belt for these pants. You just grab the quick adjust in the front and pull on it, tighten up the pants. It's going to have knee pads built right into the pants, which is a really cool feature. They're not going to be thick like a tethered knee pad, but they're going to be heavy enough for a morning or an evening hunt. I think on an off day suit, probably want to have regular knee pads, a little more cushion. There's going to be no back pockets because you don't want anything in your back pockets when you're hunting out of saddle, so they're worthless. They will have front pockets on the pants, and they will have leg pockets on the pants. I'm sure I'm missing something, but that's the general take of it. It's designed, 55. I'm a stats guy. All 3 books I've written, I've got stats on everything. 55 to 65% of all Pope and Young bucks from every state, I don't care what state, are taken during the rut phases. So typically up in the Midwest and up in the Northeast, temperatures are usually 20 to 40, 45 degrees during the rut phases, October 25th, 28th through until gun season. I designed this suit with that light insulation in it for rut phase hunting, because that's when most of those bucks should be targeted. And it's also going to be very roomy inside. So, personally, I wear a medium if I'm wearing, early season or a lightweight, midweight suit. And then I go to a larger size for layering underneath it for cold weather. This one's going to have plenty of room in it to layer. So you just order what size you would normally wear. Even for cold weather hunting, if you wear a large, you order a large, and we'll still have room for layering.
How long did that process take to design this? Have you had these ideas in your mind for a long time and finally, came to fruition?
Yeah, I've had a long time. Yeah, Scentlok's never paid me. I endorse their products because they work.
Yeah.
I can't believe people don't take advantage of the technology that's out there, but I've endorsed it because it works. I'm not one of those hypocritical guys that endorses something because somebody pays me. I don't endorse anything that anybody pays me for. I think I would become biased towards a product.
Easy to do when someone's paying you, for sure. And so is this the second, I guess, product design that you have that's come to market? Obviously the Signature Series saddle, and then now the suit. So those are the two, I guess, ideas that came to fruition. Or is there a lot of things we don't know about?
Yeah, there's other ones. I designed an ambush jacket for Rivers West, which I think Rivers West is the most premier waterproof garment, for the money. Mm-hmm. And I designed that for them in 2005, Rivers West ambush suit. And it actually won the Field and Stream Best of the Best Garment Award in 2005. And then I also designed a waterproof radial hat for Rivers West back then too, because I hate hoods. I absolutely can't stand wearing a hood where it covers my ears when it's raining. Mm-hmm. So I designed a hat where you wouldn't get wet, yet your ears are still exposed.
It's cool to see these things come to light, because obviously it's hard to argue your track record. It's hard to argue your experience. The only way you get that is by doing all the things you've done, and to have that basically designed into something that people can go buy and have something streamlined is pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. And it's going to be under $200, so it's not going to be an overly expensive item.
Awesome. That's really cool. So I guess transition here, it looked like you had a very interesting year last year, 2 bucks in Michigan. And then you guys cleaned house in Kansas.
Yeah. Kansas was a riot. My Michigan season was good. I killed 2 really nice bucks, one awesome buck, poor recovery on it on my part, stupid stuff I did on my part. But the Kansas thing, I just love going out of state with my boys. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I can tell you guys had a really good time. So before we get into Kansas, I do have some questions about Michigan. So was that the farm that we recorded, whatever it was, 2019, where you went there? We recorded some stuff on.
Yeah, I think it was.
Was it? Okay.
It had to be, because it's the only place I have where I have private permission relatively close to my house. It's like a half hour from my house.
So that's interesting. And then you put a poor shot on it, and you regret not hiring or getting a dog to go out there to help track it. Is that something you'll do different if you make a shot similar to that again? Will you hire a dog to come out?
Absolutely. And my son Chris, when he was with us, he owned 2 Bavarian bloodhounds that he smuggled back from Germany because they were purebreds. Mm-hmm. And so I know all about using dogs. I was just a stubborn ass and just didn't do it. I didn't have time the next day to do it. And that wasn't the only dumb thing I did. The other dumb thing was I did not shoot the broadhead that I was hunting with prior to hunting. And it shot 8 inches to the left. And I've preached that forever. Never, ever go bow hunting without shooting your broadhead first. Make sure it shoots the same as your field tip. And then I went and did it. And
Mm-hmm.
and it cost. I mean, I got the antlers, but I didn't get the deer. I didn't.
Right. So was that the same broadhead you've been using for a long time, or did you switch fixed blades, or what's the story there?
I'm only shooting 45 pounds. My shoulders are hurting all the time, both of them now again. And so I had been shooting a 3-blade G5 100 grain striker fixed blade, and they came out with a 100 grain 4-blade. Same. I mean, it looked identical. It just had 4 blades instead of 3, so they must have taken a little bit of weight out of the ferrule to do so. And I just assumed it would fly the same. 100 grain G5, same cut diameter, just an extra blade. And man, was I wrong. It shot 8 inches to the left. And after I got home and I shot it, it was 8 inches to the left on my target too. I felt like such an idiot because I was. That was just absolutely stupid on my part.
Yeah. Well, by you explaining this, hopefully that's a general reminder for someone to do that again before they go out this fall to shoot your broadhead before you're going out there. Because I see where you're coming from. But yeah, that always sucks when that happens. And then you rattled in both Michigan bucks too.
Yeah, I did. Yep, I rattled in the first one on October 3rd. That was the one down on that private piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I rattled in on October 19th, and it was during October lull. And I usually don't hunt much during October lull, but if I've got a swampy area, because this one was public land, if I've got a swampy area on public land and it's not in my plan of places to hunt during the rut phases later in October and November, yeah, I'll go in once in a while and just do, get hunker down in the swamp and just do a rattle sequence in the morning. And this time it worked. Rattled him in about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
He came in after the second sequence. I rattled it, I think 7:55 and then 8 o'clock. And then he came, or 7:50 and then 7:55. And I shot him about 8 o'clock. And he was coming in looking for whatever was sparring. It was a sparring sequence. It was not a rattle sequence. And it was in a dense swamp with water in it and cattails.
And you pre-scouted that in the spring, new area?
Yeah, that was the spot I found. Well, I went back to it in the spring. I kind of knew it was there. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Any swamp, it doesn't matter. On public land, you go in a swamp during October lull. If it's a spot you're not going to hunt during the rut phases, you don't want to go screw up a spot you're going to hunt later in the rut, where it's got to work on the merits you chose it for. But just go in and try and rattle something from a distance is a pretty good plan.
And what's the rattle? What do you use again? I know you mentioned it prior, but it's not a set of antlers. It's a call by, I can't remember by who or what.
It's a Nightingale, and it's probably 30 years old. It's just a Nightingale rattle bag, and it's got pretty long sticks in it. There's 5 sticks in it. There was 7. I took 2 out so I could make them a little louder and grind them a little bit easier. And it's got really thin fabric, and I've replaced the fabric on it a couple of times, actually.
How many bucks has that rattle bag killed?
Oh my God. The rattle bag didn't kill any, but my arrow.
Sure.
I was using it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know, probably 15, I would guess.
Wow.
And some smaller ones back, 30 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Some in, it's definitely some out west for sure. Because out west, typically when I'm out in Iowa or Kansas or Missouri, half the time you rattle, something comes in. There's just that many bucks. They're not always big ones, obviously, but you get a response a lot, very frequently.
Have you ever thought about moving to a state like Iowa or Kansas, or are you just Michigan, or you're pure Michigan?
I'm pure Michigan. Yeah, I mean, I golf a little bit. I love to fish. Michigan's the best fishing state probably in the country,
and a great golf state. Beautiful golf courses.
Other than maybe Florida, and golf too. And I turkey hunt. I do lots of things. I would never even consider moving to a state just to kill a deer every year. Because, I know several guys from Michigan, and you're from Ohio, right?
I'm from Illinois, but yeah, the rest of the team's in Ohio. Yep.
Okay. I know several guys from Michigan, at least 3 that I can think of, that moved to Iowa. And for some odd reason, they all moved to Iowa. And because they wanted to kill big bucks. And you never hear from them again, because they go out there and they kill 160-inch buck every year, and it's not a big deal. You're just another hunter.
Yeah, that's
unless you kill a 180, 90 incher out there, it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting. And in our line of work and conversations that we've had, there's way more than 3 people that I know that move from like Pennsylvania or Michigan that go to Iowa just to hunt more deer and have better opportunities. But I mean, to your point, the bar of quote unquote success is definitely higher in terms of inches.
But yeah, big time. I mean, so, if you live in a PA or an Ohio or a Michigan or New York, you go out there and you kill 140 incher and you bring it home. That's a stud. I mean, that's a super stud buck, and it's impressive. You kill 150 incher out there, or some people will scoff at you. Hell, in zones 4, 5, and 6, which are the premier zones out there.
Yeah.
There's areas where people won't even lift the bow off the hook unless it's 170 incher.
Yeah, which is hard to fathom when you think about that. It is crazy. It's a whole other world.
Yeah, it's not as good as the TV guys have it, but it's the next best thing, I would say.
For sure. So, and something that it seems that you have very specific systems and ideologies on a lot of your hunting tactics, but something that you've integrated more is cell cameras on these out-of-state hunts. And tell us a little bit about what that's been and what it's improved on your out-of-state hunting tactics. I know you have a very specific system. It's 10 days, 2-day scouting, and then you're hunting throughout. So how is that implemented into your plan?
Well, as you know, in Michigan, I rarely use cell cameras because intrusions are very negative to possibly killing something at a hunting location.
Mm-hmm.
But when we go out west, we used to use Browning cell cams, but you had to check the cards every day, which was a pain in the ass. But out there, we would literally, if we were capable with a vehicle, we would drive right up to the camera, pull the card, switch the card, take it back, look at it on a computer and see what was there. I mean, that's how intrusions don't make that big of a difference out there. There's so many mature bucks and the rut is so competitive. But then you guys were nice enough to send us some Exodus cameras, and they were cell cams. And you could basically run 10 cameras off the same
off Scout Tech. Yep.
Scout Tech. And that's awesome. So the last 2 years, we've put out cameras that we don't even have to go to the cameras because we got the solar panels, and we just sit in the house and see what's coming in. So every deer we've killed over the last couple of years, we've had it on camera before we hunted the location, because we totally hunt cameras. I mean, when we see something come into a camera, and it's almost always at a primary scrape area. When we see something come into the camera, then we hunt that the next hunt, whatever, if it was a morning or an evening, that's when we would hunt it. It's been phenomenal. It makes it way easier. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, you can be a lot more efficient with your sits and approach. So explain to someone, they have 4 or 5 cell cameras. They're getting ready to go to Kansas. They drew this year. And where and why are you putting cameras where you do on your trips? You mentioned primary scrape. So is that in that 2-day scouting period? Like, okay, this is a primary scrape, put a cell camera here, solar panels, get the heck out of there, see what happens.
That's exactly what we do. We do, let's see, usually we leave on the 16th because it's during our gun season. We go out there during post rut, which to me is a big, huge advantage. Because a lot of people go out there during the rut, like the 7th through 15th or 20th. And the mature bucks, the big dominant bucks, are in a lockdown. They're usually with a hot doe. So they don't have to move much, because as soon as they breed a doe through a cycle, it doesn't take long to find the next one. They just steal it from whatever other, subordinate buck may be with it. So that's why we go out there during post rut. Those are all bred now. So now those big bucks actually have to get up off their ass and go search for late estrus does. So they have to actually move now during daylight hours, making them much more vulnerable. And they're much more susceptible to rattling and calls because there's no does in the heat anymore. So they're coming to anything. And as far as the cameras, when we're scouting, I mean, we've hunted out for a few years, so we kind of know where we're going now. We may prep 2 or 3 new locations. I think last year we prepped 3 new locations, but they're almost everything's either in a tight pinch point, in a draw, because we hunt a lot of draws out there. We're kind of in western Kansas, not eastern Kansas. And in these draws, because they're old floodplains draws, and they got lots of weeds in them, and tall cottonwoods and plum brush. And every time you get a pinch point in a draw where it narrows down, there's usually always a scrape area, almost always, because that's once all the crops are picked, which is another cool thing about post rut. All of the crops are definitely going to be gone by mid-November. So the deer are confined to these draws. That's their only place they can transition during daylight with any security cover. So we just put cameras at every scrape area we find. Or if there's a terrain feature, something that's unique, we'll put a camera there, and then we just sit and watch them. So the first 2 days, like last year, for instance, we arrived out there, I think at 9:00 at night. We left at like 6:00 in the morning, left Michigan, arrived there 9:00 at night, went to bed, woke up in the morning. We scouted and prep locations the first 2 days entirely. And, put cameras with solar panels at every single location. And then we slept in on day 3 and hunted that first evening. So we always like to get the scouting and location prep totally out of the way and not even think about hunting, at least until day 3. That's why we never do 7-day hunts. We want to do 10-day hunts so you don't get rushed. You still got 7 days basically to hunt. Once you start hunting.
In those 7 days are so much more effective because you've spent some time, specifically scouting without being distracted, trying to let's scout for half a day and try to get into a stand this evening. Like you guys, dark to
that's
dark
what everybody else does. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't even think about hunting until day 3. No, it's not even on our minds whatsoever.
What if it's day 1, you find some really good sign and like a really strong cold front rolls in the next day? Have you ever deviated from your plan? Never? Really? No. Oh my gosh. I don't think I'd be controlled enough, but I don't have 50 Pope and Young bucks either too.
I never even think about it, and a lot of times you'll put cameras out, you got cameras out from day 1 scouting and location prep, and you'll get pictures of big bucks. And and John, my son, John, he's just a stone cold killer. He's the same way, we don't even think about it. It doesn't even enter our minds. And keep in mind also, we're hunting out west. Most deer hunters, when they go out of state, they look at big timber,
big tracks. They want to go where they can run around.
Yeah, they want to go to big timber. And on a short-term hunt, big timber is very difficult because you don't have destination locations. You tend to wander in big timber, eating acorns or whatever, browsing. They just have a lot bigger core area, and there's no go destination locations where bucks have to visit them to pick up their next Esper stow. So the cool thing about hunting out west, western Kansas, is it's 80% open area and 20% timber and draws. So the deer are very, very confined when we go out there, which makes it a lot easier. The more confined the traffic, the easier it is to kill on a short-term hunt.
Here's a question. So in these more confined areas, do you think that sign is more aggressive as well? Because all of the deer are just confined to that little area. All the deer are laying down a bunch of scent, and it gets a little bit more competitive. Testosterone rises a little bit.
Absolutely. And it's a lot easier to call stuff in those types. Yeah. That's why we have such a high success rate of call, rattling in bucks.
Yeah.
Because they're so confined. They also bed in those same draws. So
very interesting. So, and you kind of have that rule of thumb where it's 70-80% ag, 20 to 30% timber. Do you try to apply those same concepts in even Iowa or other states that you go to, like these, Nebraska, wherever else you go?
I've never been to Nebraska, but I always do that. I try to do that everywhere, even in Michigan. I would much rather hunt ag areas. My ag areas are much easier to hunt because once crops are down, the deer traffic's more consolidated. It's more confined.
Well, Big woods are really popular. Have you ever thought about trying big woods? Because we talk to people all across the country, and that is probably one of the most requested topics. But to your point, it's a lot more challenging.
I hunted big timber exclusively for 20 years up in northern Michigan. So I've done it. I'm very cognizant of the fact that it's more difficult to find destination areas, and it's just more difficult. Like you go up to the Upper Peninsula or from where I live north, it's just all big timber. There's very, very minimal, if any, ag in many of the areas.
So if you had to boil down 20 years of hunting big type of terrain settings, if you had to boil down just a little bit of advice for people, what would you say that you learned in those 20 years?
On big timber?
Yeah.
What I always looked for was terrain feature breaks where two or
Edge.
three terrain features dumped, like ridge dumped into a swampy area,
Mhm.
Down at the base of that ridge. Oaks, obviously oak ridges where there's going to be, feeding mass. 'Cause in big timber areas, deer tend to browse.
Mhm.
They don't have crops they can go to, so they just eat whatever the best preferred browse is. So obviously oaks in everything, 100% of everything I do is security cover oriented.
Mhm.
The draws have the best security cover when we're out west, and in Michigan, security cover is even more, of a, you have to have security cover in Michigan on public or pressured private if you want to kill mature bucks with any consistency. Because big mature bucks don't like moving through areas where they can't have a secure exit route within 1 or 2 bounds. They like to follow edges of heavy security cover or move through heavy security cover. So you could have, if you're in a big timber area and you've got an oak ridge and it's a pressured big timber area, because northern Michigan, not the UP so much, but northern Michigan gets a lot of hunting pressure. So if you've got an oak ridge and it's got oaks on it, but it's pretty much open, there's no understory underneath it, but there's no adequate transition security cover from a known bedding area to that oak ridge, the odds of a mature buck that I would want to kill feeding on that oak ridge during daylight hours would be minimal, because he's going to leave. If he's feeding up there at night, he's going to leave that oak ridge before daylight and go down in bed, and he's not going to feed up in that open area after daylight. So you've got to have security cover from the bedding area to the oak ridge, so he's
Mhm.
comfortable moving to and from it, and possibly being up there, at the crack of daylight or just before dark. And you
Mhm.
always want to pick out the tree. There is an adequate transition security cover zone from a bedding to a oak ridge or some, whether it be black cherries or beech nuts or, whatever the mast may be. You always want to pick the tree closest to the edge of the transition security cover where the transition security dumps into the feeding zone.
Mhm.
Because if you're going to have a mature buck come in there and feed it in daylight, that's the first tree that he's going to stop and eat at, because he still wants to be close to whatever the best exit security cover is, which would be that transition zone security cover.
That's interesting.
Did that
Break
make
it down that
sense?
way. Yeah, that makes
Okay.
total sense. Let me ask you this. I'm kind of jumping around all over the place. Do you think the ability to get into more trees because you are a saddle hunter has helped with
Oh,
that? Like when you say first tree, and I'm thinking, someone that's a
big time.
tree stand hunter, they're like, well, I can't get in there. Or there's no way I can get a shot off out of that tree stand. But with your saddle, you're so much more versatile. So you
Yeah.
feel super confident in that,
Yeah.
obviously.
The two things in my career of bow hunting that have changed my success rates. Number one was saddle hunting. When I first bought a saddle in 1981, nobody knew what the hell it was. And it was awkward. It was weird, but I always look at the future. I'm not looking at, okay, this is difficult right now, so I'm not going to use it. I throw it over to the side and go back to a tree stand. I could see the advantages. Shooting 360 around the tree, keeping the tree as a hiding buffer. This thing weighs 2 pounds. I can carry it in my backpack. I can prep 50 trees and hunt all of them with the same one. I don't have to have a stand in every one. Nobody's going to steal a damn thing. It's the safest thing there is out there. Nobody's going to hunt from when I'm not there.
Mhm.
I can hunt a leaning tree. I can hunt trees 3 feet in diameter. I can hunt trees 4 inches in diameter. I can hunt trees with branches where you can't do that with a climber. The advantages of hunting out of a saddle are so huge over anything conventional made out of metal that I think if I had to hunt out of tree stands, I'd quit hunting. I think it's that archaic, to be honest with you.
Oh my
And a
God.
lot of people just look at a saddle and like, well, it's different. I get up in there and I'm not comfortable. Well, that's a lazy hunter.
Uh-huh.
If he can't foresee, if he doesn't have the foresight to see what the advantages are going to be once he learns how to use it and take a few hours to learn how to use it, he's a lazy hunter, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
And the same thing with Scentlok. When I first bought Scentlok, I had no clue how to use it. Scentlok didn't have, and still, in my opinion, doesn't have good instructions on how to properly care for, properly use it, care for it, and store it. So it took me, almost 2 years to where I was confident not paying attention to wind. And I did several tests where I tested the Scentlok suit against a suit that was permeable that I would get winded in, and to be able to tell the difference. I tested 2 days in a row with each one. And so, to discard technology that will totally negate paying attention to wind, that's another lazy person, in my opinion. The technology is there. I've Googled activated carbon. Scentlok just happens to own the patent on activated carbon in hunting clothing. Activated carbon is unbelievable. It's used in thousands and thousands of applications for absorptive capacities around the world, in industries, the government, militaries, NASA, just paint respirators. I mean, so many things use activated carbon, and for people to just dismiss it and say it doesn't work, that's, to me, that's ridiculous. And a lot of people have bought it and used it and not had it work because they weren't doing it right. You can't replicate what the TV guys do, and have your hair hanging down from a logo hat and you got a beard or
that's what I've noticed too.
I just don't get it.
And
that blows the whole thing.
Yeah, in those Kansas videos, you have a skull cap that's tight and covering all your hair.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that's an easy thing that a lot of people just simply overlook? Like no hat, no, because I know it's a whole system. Like it's the whole idea of having, trying to be as scent free as possible. But
absolutely,
I could see where people would just simply, not do that. And the other thing that I know you mentioned is the backpack too, where they do all that and they're dragging their backpack in the back of their truck and bringing it inside and loading it up. Would you agree?
Hands.
Yeah, those are the two biggest things you think?
Absolutely. Well, the head cover is the biggest thing.
Okay.
Head cover is number one. I mean, because you watch TV shows and TV guys that are sponsored by Scentlok, they never wear a head cover. They wear jacket pants and gloves and rubber boots, and they got a stinky ass backpack, and they got a regular logo hat with one of their sponsors on it, and they got hair hanging out the back. They got beards. They got stinky necks. They got stinky face paint on, and they can get away with it because they're hunting zoo-like settings where deer don't get shot at till they're 4 or 5 years old. So they tolerate a lot of human odor, and they just tolerate a lot of stuff. And there's lots of mature bucks where they hunt. If you're a regular hunter, you got to pay attention to every detail. You've got to have 40% of your odor comes out of your head. So you've got to have a head cover with a drop down face mask that's covering your mouth and your nose. The only thing exposed is your eyes. When you take a shot, you can pull it down, so it doesn't hamper your anchor point. But yeah, if you do all that, plus have a clean backpack, you got to have a clean backpack too.
How many rubber boots do you typically have in the back of your van? Pairs?
Probably on average, I have 10, and I change them out according.
See, I saw that when you're loading up your Michigan deer, and I was like, how many rubber boots are in the back of that? So is that part of that reason too? So you're rotating them, and they're not, wearing stinky rubber boots?
Oh no, it's not it has nothing to do with the stinky rubber boots. It just has to do with if I take off and go downstate to hunt for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
When you wear boots, a lot of times on a morning hunt, I'm not going to have time to dry a pair of boots on the inside, and I got sweaty on the inside, so I'll have another pair of the same boot that I can wear on the evening hunt, so I'm not stepping into with clean, dry socks into a wet, damp interior of a boot. So I usually will have at least 2 pair of every style of boot I'm going to have in my van. And I always carry, just non-insulated, 600-gram insulated, pack boots. I carry 2 of several different weights of boots, depending on the time of year it is. But I don't do any additional character rubber boots. They're just tossed in my.
You just want dry boots when you use them, basically.
And then I will dry them, obviously. If it's an evening hunt and I'm going to stay in a motel, I'll put them on a dryer, for morning.
Interesting. That's something that I think a lot of people overlook too. That's just a common practical thing.
Yeah. If you put your foot, especially if it's cold outside, you put your foot, even if you got a dry sock, you put your foot in a damp boot, your feet are going to get cold quick.
Yeah.
Because moisture, transmits heat or cold much quicker than just dry air.
Okay, that makes sense. So here's another off the wall conversation or question here. So I watched one of your videos where you were stalking deer and standing corn. And while we're kind of still talking about, 70-80% ag areas, what's your philosophy on standing corn in relation to shooting big bucks?
It's not that conducive for shooting big bucks. best. I will
Uh-huh.
say that.
Okay.
I will say that. As far as just shooting deer for the freezer, I think I've killed one. I can only think of one good buck I've shot in standing corn. They bed in standing corn a lot.
Uh-huh.
There's just so few of them in Michigan. There's for every 3.5-year-old buck in Michigan, there's probably 40 or 50 other deer. Year and a half old, 2.5-year-old bucks, and does and fawns.
A ton of does.
So walking up in a cornfield on a mature buck in Michigan would be very, very difficult because they're just so rare of an animal in a pressured area. But stalking standing corn is absolutely a riot. It is just, it teaches you patience, because when you start, you want to do it during a rain or during a windy day. But after you've done it for maybe a half an hour through a cornfield, you tend to want to go too fast. You hurry, and you can't. It teaches you to be patient, and also, for filling the freezer, or even for trying to kill a mature buck. When you're hunting standing corn, stalking standing corn, or hunting in a standing cornfield on an ambush hunt, a lot of times there's little swales and stuff where you can sit in a swale, make yourself a makeshift blind out of some corn stalks on the edge of the swale. But you're not messing with your rut phase hunting locations. So, if you've got, the corn's going to be cut at some point before the rut phases, this gives you a place where you can hunt, and it will not affect any deer traffic at your rut phase locations. Because if you hunt your rut phase locations in mid-October into late October, you're altering doe traffic, because the mature bucks are going to be nocturnal anyway. You're not going to see them. So anytime you're altering deer traffic prior to when the bucks are going to be pursuing those does, when their testosterone levels get high enough and they start chasing those does, when you're altering doe traffic at a hunting location, you're also altering buck traffic at that hunting location during daytime, traffic at the location as well. That's not to say there's not going to still be sign there. Deer are still going to come in there after dark and feed or whatever it is. But it's just not going to happen during daylight hours. And, all the sign in the world is worthless if it's not made during daylight hours. I only look for places where I assume that sign could possibly be made during daylight hours. But the standing corn thing, you can hunt it to your heart's content. It's not going to affect any of your rut phase locations,
So talk a little bit. So let's say I'm looking at a square field of, 20 acres of corn. And it's surrounded by this open timber on all sides. Yep. What bedding structure do you typically see some of these deer on, how they bed on a square chunk of corn? Is that still on the edges?
Totally depends on the cornfield, because every cornfield is different. Some cornfields have little valleys running through them. Some farmers, the corn rows are clean as a whistle. Some farmers, there's weeds between the corn, so you can't see very far. But typically they don't bed along the head rows. They're usually in towards the middle of the field for the most part. And I've never really noticed where there's any pattern as far as where they bed. Now, I will say I have noticed that a lot of times in irregular shaped fields, you'll get areas where the corn rows go this way and then they'll meet this way. And there's like a bunch of corn right here in one little area that you can't see through, and it's really dense. And bucks do tend to like to bed near that denser corn. And even in that standing corn that's 12 feet tall, there's more security cover right there at that location. So that's where they tend to bed. And another thing that you can do is deer like to, if you're in an area with a pivot, the pivot wheels.
Yeah, they follow that.
They follow those. That turns into runways, especially the outside pivot wheel, because it's almost a straight line because it's got such a wide angle to it. And they'll follow that, and you can put up a makeshift line, along that, cut some corn rows down to that. And I always like to cut my lanes into a V, so you've got one spot where you'll see it come by, and then you shoot it in the next spot. So I will always make a V anytime I'm hunting a single route through a standing cornfield, because otherwise you won't have time to lift your bow and get your shot if you just got a single route, single shooting.
That's a good piece of advice. How slow are you working through a cornfield? When you say most people work too fast. So like, how are you like tell me a story of an example so we can piece together like what that looks like. Cause for me, I guess I think I would screw it up if I went out tomorrow to try to do it. Let's say it's October and I'm going to go try to stalk in the cornfield. I know I'm going to make a pile of mistakes. So I'm going to try to curve that from your advice here.
Well, first off, you have to have, this is an absolute must. It has to be either raining relatively hard or it's got to be extremely windy, because you cannot stalk through dry corn. It's totally impossible to move through dry corn without deer hearing you and moving and leaving. You also have to have a very good scent control regimen, because 50% of the deer on average are going to be downwind of you. Because you're walking through corn looking both ways. They are going to be downwind of you, half of the deer that you see. But typical scenario is did you want the scenario of how to do it? Is that what you're looking for?
Sure. Yeah. Or just walk through an example. Cause the one video you had, there's a doe. It looks like it's 10 yards away, bedded right down.
Yeah. She bedded down right while I had the camera on.
Yeah. To me, that's crazy.
As you can tell, I have a tremor. So, so my video, holding a video camera, it was a little shaky, but yeah. I mean, you don't see them bed down in front of you. Usually they're already bedded. Yeah. But to walk through a cornfield and you stick your head through and you look down the road to the right and then to the left, or left and then to the right. And if you see something bedded, then you'll
put together,
depending on how far away it is. If it's 30 yards, a lot of cornfields, you can see 40 yards down the road. If it's 25 yards down the road, you can't shoot typically 25 yards down a row, because there's going to be corn leaves kind of in the way that would possibly alter your accuracy. So you want to back up 4 or 5 rows, count the rows you back up, move towards the deer. Let's say it's 25 yards. You range it at 25 yards. You want a 7-yard shot. Then what you do is you walk. If you want a 7-yard shot, you walk 18 steps down that road that you backed up 4 or 5 rows. Walk towards deer 18 steps. Then very slowly walk through the rows. You know exactly what row it is. You got to go 5 rows, and then knock an arrow, and then slowly put your head through there and peek. And when the deer's got its attention elsewhere, you just step into the row and take your shot.
That's got to be a rush.
I've killed 3 does in one corn stalk.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it didn't take probably an hour. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think it would be more difficult the farther west you went, because the crop fields are so much larger. You get out in Iowa and Kansas, or
200-300 acre fields,
Iowa and Illinois,
160s. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Yes. And there's lots and lots of them. So the bucks have, or the does have, many more options of corn to bed in. So you may have to cover a whole lot of corn to get sightings. Michigan's kind of cool because, it's pretty rare here to see a cornfield much over, 20, 40 acres, which is something you can stalk a 20-acre cornfield, probably 2-3 hours.
Okay.
Going slowly. And you just basically, if you start at one end, however, let's say you can see 40 yards down a row, you're going perpendicular to the rows. Once you get to the other end of the field, if you can see 40, then you go 80 down, and then you go back through, because now you're covering the other 40 that you put, to that side, and 40 more the other side. And when you get through, you go another 80 yards. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, I've seen so many deer in cornfields. That was just a one-day deal where I went out and saw, I don't know, 4 or 5 does, and that was probably a 20-acre field. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So that's a really cool concept. I think it's a good way to maybe get a little bit better of stalking animals. It's a good playground for that, to hone your skills and learn patience, like you said. And
it's just fun too. It's just fun.
I could imagine that'd be a rush. And the other, it's still the same concept that you've been talking about, is basically constricting areas where the deer can be on whatever it is. Like, for instance, you said that those fields are a little bit smaller, so there's less area for them to be, and you can start to, process eliminations a lot more efficient that way.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Good observation.
Okay, then I have some little bit more rapid fire questions, and these are meant to be like, I don't know, about 3 to 5 minute answer. If they go a little bit longer, that's okay too. But so this plain and simple, what is your favorite time to be in the woods?
As far as a date, or mornings and evenings, or what?
It could a date, a time range.
I'd say October 28th through November 2nd.
November
Pre-rut.
2nd.
I'm a pre-rut guy in Michigan.
Okay.
Obviously out west post, I like post-rut, but in Michigan, yeah,
Okay.
I like that mid pre-rut.
And you're set up typically on primary scrapes during that time frame, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Or it's possible. Well, yeah, typically if I'm at a fruit tree, an apple tree or something, because Michigan does have a lot of isolated apple trees lost throughout the timber everywhere.
yeah.
It's going to have scrapes under it too. So that's not only a feeding destination, it's also a primary scrape area. It's very common you find an apple tree that it doesn't have scrapes underneath it if it's dropping apples, because there's a lot of doe traffic.
So that's when you find that I assume almost adds a multiplier to how efficient that spot could be.
Absolutely.
It's a primary scrape with the food source for an evening hunt.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And definitely strictly, if it's a food location as well, it's strictly an evening spot. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'd spook deer feeding there with a morning entry before they.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's okay. This one is, so how do you feel about camo patterns specifically?
There's some camo patterns I like better than others. I can only recall one time where I had a deer come out of the woods, come out of some conifers, and I was 60 yards away. And it was the first time I ever wore ASAT camo. And I was in a pine tree, which is green, and ASAT is a light brown. And that deer, and it was a buck, he turned and looked. I mean, it was like I was a light in the tree. He turned and looked right at me, picked me, and went back in the woods. But other than that, I hunt relatively high. It's pretty rare I'm below 25 feet once the foliage is down. When the foliage is up, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. As long as you have something that somewhat simulates the colors of the, like Real Tree Extra, Mossy Oak. I love these new patterns, Terragila and Real Tree Escape. I love how well they're broken up. But during early season, I think having a little bit darker pattern is actually better, because there's a lot of foliage in the trees and everything is a dark background, basically.
Would you ever wear solids, like a solid tan, solid green?
If I didn't have an option, they do that in Europe. When my son was in Germany, everything was just OD green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could definitely you could kill a deer out of a red plaid shirt with blue jeans.
Clearly. Yep. There's a lot of people to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, your odds are better with camo. Yeah, you always want to go with something that's going to up your percentages, and that's what you do. But people say, well, there's lots of deer killed before anybody used Scentlok or out of the tree stand. Well, of course there was a lot of animals killed with spears by cavemen too. So why don't you grab a spear and see how good you are compared to what you have that's technology driven that you could use today.
For sure.
Those types of replies to me are stupid.
They sound like the caveman.
A lot of deer that were shot out of a tree stand or without Scentlok. Well, of course there were. I shot lots of deer. I go into 35 years without using it. So.
Good point. So, okay. So this is, a theme that we see with a lot of folks, and it kind of sounds like some of your favorite dates for those out of state hunts fall during this time frame. But do you hunt the week of Thanksgiving, and why?
We are typically out in Kansas the week of Thanksgiving. Yes.
Yeah.
We leave on the 16th. It's really interesting, Jake. The post-rut thing is so different because Kansas, Iowa, and Ohio are three of the
late gun season
states that have late gun seasons. So
which
you
is
can
amazing.
go out. Yeah. So you can go out during their post-rut, and they don't have a lot of bow hunting pressure. So you can go out there during the post-rut and do very well. So we leave on the 16th. We get there the 17th, or we get there the night of the 16th. We scout 17th, 18th. Don't usually hunt until the 19th. And we see a lot of 1.5 and 2.5-year-old bucks. And keep in mind, out there, a 2.5-year-old buck is going to usually be 120 to 130 incher. And once in a while, we'll see 140 incher during that November 19 through 22nd time frame. But we're hunting for 150 plus inchers, and they're doed up. They are usually with hot does, having them locked down in some form of whatever the best bedding area in their core area is, or the doe's core area is. But it seems like once the 22nd or 23rd of November hits, it's almost to the day. It has been for 5 years. It's almost to the day where the big bucks, the 150s, 160s, we've even seen bucks up to 180. The does are primarily all bred, and now they have to actually get up and move, and they have to search for late estrus does. And then they go back to their same haunts that they did during the pre-rut, and they start visiting their primary scrape areas in whatever feeding destination location areas that there are that doe goes to. Mm-hmm. So I forgot what your question was, but
it was, do you hunt the week of Thanksgiving? But clearly that is one of the best times in your opinion.
That goes into Thanksgiving. Yeah, as long as you're in a state where the gun season opens later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Illinois is the third Friday in November every single year, and so that falls on like the 16, 17, 18, 19 time frame, which does stink because it basically halts, all the great things about Illinois right at that point. It's over. It's late season.
I think Missouri and Nebraska are the same. I think Missouri's Saturday, and I think Missouri is.
Missouri I think is a week or two before Illinois too. So. And there's a lot of people that seem to have really great success in that later part of November in Iowa, and because they don't have the gun season that limits what you're discussing.
The only downside to that post-rut period is the antlers. I'd say 50% of the bigger bucks have busted up antlers now.
Yeah,
that's the big negative of that, because there's so many big bucks out there and they beat the shit out of each other.
Oh yeah, you'll have that. That's okay.
I can remember passing up a buck. I hunted this deer. I knew he was in the area. I could hear him in the bedding area, but I didn't want to go in it because it was so small. And finally, I think it was November 23rd, he came out to the primary scrape area, which was just on the outside of the bedding area. And he was probably 24, 25 inch inside spread.
Wow.
And he would have been at least a 12-pointer. Five of his tines were busted right off, flush with the main beam. I actually took a picture of him with my cell phone. So I got that picture of that buck. It literally, I think 10 or 12 yards broadside. Oh. And I just let him walk.
That's a special frame. That'd be tough. Just a
that
type of deer.
Would have been the widest buck I ever shot. I shot at 23 and a half inch inside spread 10-point in Missouri, and he was clean.
Uh-huh. Boy. Okay, so this kind of leads into this kind of the same concept, but in your opinion, is there a second rut, or do you think that it's just post rut, or what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a second rut. There's definitely those that don't get bred during the first rut that, the first rut that come into heat again. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely early doe fawns that, born early that come into estrus. They have their first estrus cycle that year. Sometimes it's even in January. Mm-hmm. So
what's your strategy with that? So let's say, for instance, you go to Kansas, you don't shoot your buck on your 10-day trip, and you still have that tag, or even Iowa, it's a little bit harder tag to draw. Are you going back to try to hunt the second rut at any point, or no?
No, usually by December, my job gets so busy that I just can't.
What about now that you're retiring?
Now that I'm retiring, I definitely will. I think there's an excellent chance I'll be going to Ohio during December, or some other state during December. Thinking about Oklahoma, actually.
Interesting. Oklahoma seems to be an up and coming state for a variety of reasons. We did some whitetail cribs there as well, and it seemed like pretty strong population of nice bucks.
Oh, they're out. I mean, hell,
clearly
borders Kansas, for God's sakes. Yeah,
do the math.
Get up in the northern panhandle of Oklahoma. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good insight. Now, this is a kind of an awful wall conversation or question that hopefully you haven't been asked this, but you are strictly free permission or public ground.
Correct.
Let's say in a different universe, a different version of you has to go buy a farm, 40 acres. What does that look like to you in your mind?
Well, if I had if it was a different version and I had to buy 40 acres and that's all I had to hunt, I guess I'd have to hunt there. I mean,
Right. Yep. So what's it look like?
It would suck. It would suck because I don't have options. I've got 40 acres of options, which is not a lot of options.
Yep.
I actually enjoy not owning land because I don't want to get stuck and inundated on one piece of property.
It's easy
like
to do.
The challenge of going lots of places and having
Yeah.
lots of locations prepped and having lots of options. You know, every year I've got 40 to 50. Sometimes I've had as many as 60 locations prepped. You know, by the end of April, cleaned up old locations, maybe prep some new ones for the upcoming season. I may only hunt 10 or 12 of them during the course of the season, but I've got that many available options. So yeah, being stuck on 40 acres would suck. And I've got a good example of that.
Okay.
I've got a good friend up in not too far from me, probably 30 minutes from me. And his name's Ed Simpson, and he actually owns 40 acres.
Okay.
And he's owned it for years and years and years. And in, I think, pushing 40 deer seasons, he killed 68 bucks off his 40 acres. And of those 68 bucks off his 40 acres, one of them scored 110 inches. All the rest were under 100 inches.
Oh boy.
So you've got this, he's an incredible hunter. He's an extremely good hunter. And I talked him into going out of state. And so he started going by himself. He's a solo guy like myself. He started going out of state. I think it was in 1999, maybe, because I started in 97. And he either went to Illinois or Iowa. And on 14 trips, he took 12 bucks. And these were the same thing, free permission or public land. 14 1-week trips. He didn't do 10-day trips. He took 14 bucks. The smallest one was 117 and the largest was 168. So this guy in 40 years on his property killed 68 bucks. The biggest one was 110.
Yeah.
And because he could go out of state and kind of freelance and have lots of property to look at and prep and stuff, he shot 12 bucks in 14 trips. The average period of time it took him to kill a buck on the 12 successful skull hunts was 4 days, and they were 117 to 168. So, that's the stigma of being stuck on 40 acres. Now, if I had 40 acres and it was all bedding area and it was in the middle of Drury's and Lakoski's and all these guys' places where it's like hunting in a zoo and they're going to be in my bedding area, that would be different. But that's not a challenge. You lose the challenge when you get to ultra managed places to me. And everything to me, I like to be a challenge. I like to compete.
Yeah. I can tell you're competitive for sure, which I think, and it's probably just competitive amongst yourself too. Like you said, just challenging yourself.
Yeah. I always use this example. You take sports icons, like you've probably heard me say this before. I don't know. Take sports icons, Tom Brady, Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, Mickey Mantle. He's a baseball player for you young guys. And, those guys are sports icons because when they were growing up, they played probably ball or swam or whatever in high school. And then if they were good enough, they got scholarships for college to play sports. And if they were good enough there, then they got drafted into the pros. And then to become the sports icons that they are, they had to outcompete all the other professionals that they were playing against to hit the icon status. And what's different about that is they competed on the exact same football fields, baseball diamonds, golf courses, swimming pools, as all of the hundreds of thousands of competitors that they were against to hit the icon status. The TV guys compete against absolutely nobody people. So, to me, if you're not competing, I don't want to hear about your skill set.
Sure.
Okay. Because if you can't have a skill set against competition, that skill set doesn't really mean anything to me. I mean, that's a cold, hard way of putting it, but it's just a fact of the way it is.
Well, and it's cool that you bring that up because I've thought of that too before. It's hard for me to go listen to someone else's advice that isn't in a similar situation, or like I think that's probably part of your success is you're super relatable. Anyone can go do what anyone can go attempt what you've been doing for the last, however many years. And that's where it is, I guess, you can listen to your advice because you've had success and it's on public ground or free permission property. So I can go get free permission, or I can go hunt some of these same walk-on parcels and see if I have as much success as you, or maybe not, which that's interesting because that's just one of the most interesting caveats of hunting in the hunting industry, period. It's like, well, how, yeah. So I'm on the same page with you on that. It's very interesting.
There's a lot of guys that are, there's so many phenomenal bow hunters in this country that get no credit because they're not in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
The best hunter in the freaking country may be some guy that lives in Pennsylvania and hunts public land, and he kills a 2.5-year-old buck every year, possibly a 3-year-old once in a while. But that's the best bucks he has to shoot at, and so he may be a phenomenal hunter. He just doesn't get any kudos because he's not in the public eye. So, there's a lot of phenomenal bow hunters. There's a lot of lazy ass bow hunters. There's a whole lot of really, really good ones as well.
Here's one more last question before we wrap it up. So Saddles, giant leap in technology. Scentlok, in your opinion, giant leap in technology. Exodus cell cameras. Is that in the conversation?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay.
For out of state, absolutely. Your cell cameras are phenomenal, and I love the fact that all 10. What was the term you said?
That it's all on one app, so it's all on Scout Tech.
Yeah, but I mean, you can put all these cameras and get the pictures, and you can put them 10 miles apart.
Yeah.
I think there's companies out there where they have multiple cameras, but they all are married to each other. So they got to be within some sort of a zone of each other for them for the mother camera to get the pictures and send them to you. Am I correct?
Yeah. You could have one of our cameras in Pennsylvania and one of them in Iowa and get pictures, right to the same spot on your phone. That's
what's really cool and unique, because a lot of the other ones where cameras are married to each other, they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your camera and the pictures are phenomenal. I mean, I was blown away actually how big your cameras are.
Well, that's great to hear. It's cool to hear that all the bucks that you guys shot this past year in Kansas, you had on cell camera on primary scrapes, and I think that's something that people can go put to practice when they go out of state this year. Grab a couple more cell cameras, have them be reliable, most importantly, so they're working out to go back in there and have that intrusion like you made mention of. Yeah.
Hey, one other thing.
Yep.
On that Kansas, if anybody wants to watch that Kansas video, it's pretty cool because John, he shot this monster. He's pushing 170, 13 point, and it ran like 20 yards from him and fell over. And then another big buck, damn near as big as him, within a minute came in and started fighting with this dead 13 point laying on the ground. John had the forethought to pull out his cell phone camera, and he videoed it, and it's actually on that.
It's crazy.
There's probably 15 seconds of that. Those two, I shouldn't say two bucks fighting because only one's fighting.
Hey, all right. Holy cow. That's intense. That's super intense. Well, we'll wrap it up here. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this. It was a fun conversation, and I'll give you an opportunity to plug anything you want. I know you have a lot of things going on. You're still doing your workshops every year. So feel free to plug whatever you'd like.
Just my YouTube channel. I don't sell many books and DVDs anymore because I got so much. I'm putting out so much information on YouTube, but that's fine. My YouTube channel is Eberhart Outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
I also do whitetail workshops, but those are only in the spring. Those are only March and April. And those have been filling up pretty quick for the last couple of years. That's about. When
can people check out the Scentlok suit?
That Scentlok suit, they're saying it should be available by the end of June, but as a sales rep, I know nothing is shipping on time anymore. Mm-hmm. So coming from offshore, so I'm saying sometime in July. And I also, for anybody that's interested, I'm going to get hundreds of these again. If anybody wants my Scent Control Regiment documents, and they're quite intense and they're quite long and they're very thorough and detail oriented as far as proper care and the technology of activated carbon, if you send me an email to dearjohn51@gmail.com, I'll send that to you. And then those people that get that request that I send those to, I save their emails. So I'm hoping that 2 weeks prior to the Scentlok suit arriving and being online, I will send everybody a message letting them know when it will go online for sale.
Awesome.
Because I don't expect 1,500 suits to last very long.
Yeah, especially with the amount of people that reach out about your regimen, and here's one that's tailored for the same style that you do. So excited to see that. Very cool. Congratulations on pre-retirement, and excited to follow along on what else you have going on. Much overdue, and it's so cool to learn a little bit more about some of the other products you designed in the past, and seeing some more of your work come to light this summer.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.